Welcome to Bias Buzz, powered by Accuracy Media. I'm Don Irvine, and today I'm joined by Spencer Irvine.
How's it going, everyone?
All right, first topic, the big news of the day. Donald Trump, Nevada caucus, yet another win. This is a big victory for Trump and gives him plenty of momentum going forward. Spencer, I think you've got some statistics on this.
Yeah, you look at the results, 46% of the caucus voted to back Trump, which was rather surprising. Marco Rubio was second with 24%, and Ted Cruz was third, which is a little surprising at 21%. This really wasn't good news for the anti-Trump crowd because after South Carolina, they thought, oh, he's going to lose momentum. He could lose Nevada, which was supposed to be Rubio's, best performance. They thought he could win it. But there are a couple interesting things. I mean, Ted Cruz only carried 27% of the white, born-again, and evangelical Christian vote. Trump got 41%. And this is just not looking very good. Cruz also trailed among very conservative voters, 38 to 34 compared to Trump. And among the somewhat conservative and moderate voters, he only carried 16% and 7%. So it's really not looking good for Cruz. Even though Rubio didn't win, he's beating out Ted Cruz now, and that could be enough in order for him to become a legitimate challenger to Trump going down the stretch. So it's really interesting what's happening right now. I mean, no one really saw this happening.
Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting analysis of what's going on out there. What I am surprised about is Cruz's lack of ability to attract the evangelical vote, which he really needs. I mean, he has really bet his entire campaign on attracting the evangelical vote. I mean, this is really representative of the Tea Party. He is a Tea Party guy. He needs these people to win. Instead, what he's seeing now after Iowa is that he's losing those people, and Rubio is the one coming up with the momentum. What I think is also interesting about this is that despite these last two losses, and really ones that he shouldn't have lost in terms of, I think we were pretty sure that Trump was going to win South Carolina and Nevada, but that Cruz would at least finish a good, strong second. Cruz is still out there saying that he is still the only person to defeat Trump because he's the only one who has done it, though that was Iowa. But it's kind of like, what have you done for me lately? We've got Super Tuesday coming up next week, critical slate of primaries. I don't know where the momentum is for Cruz going into this. I mean, he really needed a little bit more impetus behind this. It seems that Rubio's got what it takes right now for this. Cruz is lagging behind. Super Tuesday may not be any better for him, and Trump still may come out the winner overall on this thing. It's just it's a crazy season.
It really is. And the thing is, I mean, Ted Cruz launched his presidential campaign at Liberty University. It's an evangelical Christian school down in Virginia. And to consider that he's not even winning their vote, I mean, this is not looking good for Cruz right now. And you look at the endorsement primary, like according to 538, a left-leaning political blog now run by ESPN, or partnered with ESPN. I mean, Marco Rubio is destroying everyone else as far as endorsements are going. He has 3 governors, he has 13 senators, and a bunch of representatives from the House side, including Trey Gowdy and others. It really seems that this hashtag Marcomentum could actually, it could boil down to Trump versus Marco Rubio. I mean, this is incredible.
Right. Endorsements are important, though the more important really as we get probably after next week, after Super Tuesday, maybe potentially after March 15th. I think you will see more people lining up behind the candidates in terms of that, and they will have some influence in some of these states. But what I think is interesting about this, too, is that I guess Rubio has been able to rack these endorsements up because he's probably a little bit more collegial. Cruz has kind of blazed a path through the Senate. He has not won a lot of friends overall. He's won a lot of fans in the general public, at least with kind of the hardcore Tea Party Christian types. But he's not really revered very well in the Senate, in the halls of Congress, and that is hurting him in this vein at this point. It may or may not make a difference right now, but down the line, I mean, he needs to heal those wounds and mend those fences if he really wants to be the anti-Trump.
Yeah, the only endorsement as far as I know, is going to happen today, and that's Greg Abbott, who's the governor of Texas. I mean, that's the only endorsement that Cruz is going to receive as far as this past week, and that's rather telling.
Yeah, so it'll be an interesting race, and I want to just quickly flip to the Democrat side as well. Sanders and Clinton are locked in a pretty good battle. Looks like Hillary has got the advantage there right now. She easily has the delegates, and she's piling them up, particularly with the super delegates, so those could flip if Sanders somehow finds some momentum. But Sanders he's got the young vote and some other segments, but it may not be enough. Hillary has got some problems here coming up. I think that'll still continue to dog her. But the question is that, how long will Sanders stay in the race? Will he go all the way to the convention just to make his point before he concedes the race to Hillary?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on Google, and they compiled the delegate count. So right now, Hillary Clinton sits at 503 total delegates, the majority of which are actually those super delegates, and Bernie Sanders has only 70. The majority of those are actually the ones he won in those elections. So it's really, really interesting how the super delegate system's working out for them.
Yeah, well, it's definitely kind of an insular thing. It does make the system look a little bit more rigged. If Sanders wants to rail against the machine, the Democratic machine, he could easily do so on the superdelegate thing, because those superdelegates, they are just party poobahs, officials that have that just can go ahead and commit at any given time to their candidate, irrespective of the voting, of how the votes came out in the primaries. Because Sanders has been close. If he hasn't outright won, he's been close. So he should, in a more normal sense, he should be actually much closer in the delegate count. But those super delegates have tilting the field to Hillary, and could easily decide the race in the nomination for her.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that Rachel Maddow of MSNBC had Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's the chairwoman of the Democratic National Committee, on, and Wasserman Schultz could not satisfy Maddow's skepticism about the superdelegate system. And was it the week before, Jake Tapper also interviewed Wasserman Schultz, and he couldn't really believe what she was telling him, that this was a fair system. And a lot of people on social media, especially Twitter, definitely do not like the superdelegate, especially on the Democratic side. So it's really interesting what's going on.
Yeah, when you have the liberals and the Democrats complaining about their own system like that, that's a problem. So as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, Hillary has some problems, and I think we're well aware of Benghazi, which is still hanging over her head. The email scandal continues to live on, and we had a decision by a federal judge yesterday that now basically says that her aides can now be subpoenaed to testify about this emails, about how much they knew about the whole private email server and everything like that. This is definitely a victory that Judicial Watch, great organization, has championed this cause, and I think it's a big win for them and opens this up. And it's going to be a problem for Hillary in the sense that this is something she doesn't need to have while she's in the midst of a campaign trying to win this nomination, that she's going to have to worry about her aides getting up and testifying about what they knew about this private email server and all the emails. And one of the things that the judge mentioned in his statement order on this was that he just thought that there's been a constant drip, drip, drip. And I think he really wants to see this process speed up and kind of bring this to a quicker close. And that has been a constant complaint of conservatives and Republicans, is that we just kind of get these Friday email dumps and whatever, and there's a little bit of information, and it's just taking forever to find out what was in all these emails that Hillary Clinton had.
Yeah, and some of those email dumps have been on a Saturday. I mean, who's really looking forward to email dumps on a Saturday? You're usually doing your shopping and other things. So it's kind of ridiculous what they're doing. I'm looking at Real Clear Politics and their favorable, unfavorable numbers for Hillary. Right now, 51.4% see her as unfavorable light. 42% have a better opinion of her. So, I mean, that's a huge, huge gap. It's a 9 percentage point gap. So Hillary's going to have a hard time to overcome that.
Yeah, I think that is definitely a big problem for her. And Trump is going to face some obstacles along the way as well. I mean, if it does become a Trump-Clinton race, that will just be something to watch, because you have Hillary, where she has high numbers on the lack of trustworthiness, and then just the general feeling about Trump is that he has very high negatives as well. So it's I don't know. Is that becoming the lesser of two evils? It's hard for me to really kind of sort all this out at this stage. But you might wind up with two candidates who are not very popular with the base that they are going to.
Yeah, if you think about it, two liberal-leaning New York politicians running, and they could be the nominee. I mean, that's something that I would predict most Americans do not like. I definitely don't like it, but it could happen.
That's right. All right, Spencer, I think we have something on CPAC. What's the latest news from CPAC?
Oh, man, yesterday what happened was, so the American Conservative Union, good friends, they announced that Marco Rubio had decided not to attend the Conservative Political Action Conference, which is early March 2nd to March 5th. So there was a little controversy over that, because then the Rubio campaign fired back and said, no, we just said we haven't confirmed that we're going to attend. We haven't confirmed any of our March events. So ACU and the Marco Rubio campaign are just kind of this back and forth over, hey, you better come. If you're going to come, just let us know. Say yes or no. Don't give us a kind of a little middling answer. And it's funny because they actually published, someone on Red State found, I believe it was Leon Wolf who now runs it, was able to get a handle on the emails between the two, between the Rubio campaign and ACU. And it's really interesting what happened. There was just like a lot of, yeah, maybe not. We can't confirm.
Yeah, my take on this is I'm looking at this, trying to figure this all out. And, ACU, obviously, they want Rubio there at CPAC, and all the other remaining candidates are going to be there. So Rubio right now is the only one of the still running candidates that isn't planning on being there, though, at this point in time. And so it's an obvious an audience for him. Rubio, this is the big conservative love fest. This is going to be right after Super Tuesday. He's got a great chance to expand on his message, and if he's got momentum coming out of Super Tuesday, it'll be just a way to kind of ride that wave and everything like that. I thought it was interesting that ACU decided to go out there and kind of fire this salvo, calling it a rookie mistake. Rubio's no rookie when it comes to appearing at CPAC or doing political events by any stretch of the imagination. I kind of think that this is a little bit more of a little tweaking of them to try to put a little more pressure on them to make a commitment to come. And, I understand the scheduling issues. Rubio is in the heat of a campaign. He had a lot of things going on. CPAC hasn't always been known as the best organizer in terms of giving you, a set schedule and time. I'm sure that they'll try to be accommodating. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if the Rubio people in this case aren't actually angling for a better time slot. Right now we have no idea. If you check the CPAC website, there's no schedule. So here's something that's just over a week away, and we have no idea exactly who's speaking when. They tell you who's speaking and who's accepted to speak, but they really they haven't slotted everybody in yet. So with these major presidential candidates, we're not sure exactly when they're going to speak, and maybe Rubio's trying to one-up Trump or something like that. Maybe the Trump campaign has made certain demands. Who knows? So we'll have to wait to see how this develops, and we may not have an answer until next Tuesday or next Wednesday before the real conference begins.
Apparently, this has been going on for 7 months. It's back and forth. So ACU's president, Matt Schlapp, gave Ben Howe, who also blogs at Red State, copies of emails going back to July 20th, 2015, and they still haven't confirmed anything. All he wants, apparently, from Schlapp is that a yes or no. Just give me a straight answer. But then again, looking at Rubio, I mean, he did get some really good coverage at CPAC when he was there before. And with Rand Paul out, he could probably win the straw poll, which is always a good thing for campaigns at CPAC.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that is a possibility. It really depends. The straw poll vote just really depends upon who's out there bringing in the people. You have to be registered for CPAC to have a vote, but there's nothing that prevents the campaigns from making sure that hordes of young people their supporters, don't they get registered. The campaign might even pay for it to get them registered so they can just cast that vote. Rand Paul, winning that under the Rand Paul moniker never really has meant much. Obviously, it didn't mean anything for this campaign because he's already fizzled out. But I think in this particular instance, the winner, particularly if it's a Cruz Rubio, could be at least an important thing psychologically.
Yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see. I mean, we'll see if the Rubio campaign actually says, yeah, we'll actually go ahead but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they do agree to go, and hopefully they get a better time slot. I mean, we really don't know.
Other hot news out there still and things that are being discussed is the Supreme Court nomination with the death of Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia just a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of back and forth going on. The Republicans, the Judiciary Committee, has said that they are not going to accept a nomination, basically, and they're not going to do anything. They want to delay this until the next president takes office. It's kind of a risky strategy in an election year, but I think they have some precedent. The Democrats are obviously howling, but there have been some things that have been discovered where they basically said the same thing.
Yeah, videotape from C-SPAN actually emerged showing Joe Biden in 1992 telling his Senate colleagues, let's not confirm a SCOTUS nominee from first Bush, George H. Walker Bush. And then you had Chuck Schumer during George W. Bush's tenure say, no, we're going to filibuster. We're not going to allow this nominee to make the court, who ended up making it, who was Samuel Alito, another conservative voice on the court. So it's really interesting how they portray the Republicans as being obstructionist, and Harry Reid's come out vigorously against this planned move by the GOP. But it looks like McConnell and Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa, who's the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee, will hold fast.
And we don't know really what that means because, if they can somehow prevent that from moving forward to the full Senate, then that is a big victory for them. If they cannot prevent that from happening and it goes to the full Senate, we've already seen indications that there are Republicans who are willing to, accept this nomination and discuss it and vote on it. So that becomes a very slippery slope or a very dangerous thing for the Republicans to potentially see a liberal justice take Scalia's place. Now, what's one of the things that's funny about this too is just Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary. The press was asked him about this and about the Biden statement in particular, and he more or less said that was then, and then Biden is now different. He doesn't say those same things today, for which the journalists even laughed. I mean, so it's kind of it's a funny thing that these guys the liberals are kind of being hoisted up by their own petard at this point with their statements and being shown for who they really are. There's no doubt in my mind that if there is a nominee coming forward from Obama, that it will be another liberal justice. There's no reason for him to be like the Republicans were and nominate moderates, which have been absolute disasters for Republicans. Republicans have really blown their chances in many occasions in nominating these moderate justices, and it's really come back to bite them.
Yeah, and just kind of update on what the Republicans are planning to do. Senate Judiciary Committee said that it won't take any nominations, so they'll hopefully keep that within the committee. And Mitch McConnell, who is the majority leader in the Senate, said that the caucus agreed that they won't take up any votes either. Although you have Susan Collins of Maine and Mark Kirk of Illinois saying they would be open to voting. But hopefully the line will hold. But, it's a long ways away. It's, less than 11 months. Hopefully they can hold the line.
Next up, our pop culture update, Spencer.
Yeah, there's a lot of outrage at the Super Bowl over Beyonce's musical number, where her and her backup dancers were pretty much dressed like Black Panther militia personnel or people, and it really, really upset the police to the point that the Miami Fraternal Order of Police, so the police union, said, no, we will not be off-duty security for any of your concerts in Miami, Florida. Charlotte, North Carolina, the union there, police union, has also agreed to take a vote on it, and a Massachusetts police union is also considering that vote. There's another organization related to police unions in New York City, and they're saying they are supporting all these other unions across the United States, because I mean, Black Panthers are very anti-police. They have a very checkered history and troubled past, and I can see why people that support the police are really upset.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit that I did not pay that much attention to Beyonce at the Super Bowl during the halftime. That's not something that really drives the reason why I would watch the Super Bowl anyway. So I didn't see any of this until after the fact. But one of the things that bothers me about this is that she used that opportunity, this huge venue with how many viewers, 50 million viewers, 100 million viewers, whatever, huge number of viewers, and turned this into a political statement. The idea of the halftime show at the Super Bowl is it should be entertainment. She's an entertainer. That's why the NFL wanted her there. But the NFL also has this problem with this whole Black Lives Matter and some of their their political things. We saw that during the regular season, some of the things that were going on. And I think regardless of the police unions, which I think they're right to do this, is that the NFL has got to cut this stuff out. This political stuff is just ridiculous. These guys are out there; they're being paid to play football, not to give their political statements on the field like that.
Yeah, the National Sheriff's Association blamed Beyonce's, quote, anti-police entertainment performance for 4 officer deaths last week. There's a couple shots fired at Tennessee sheriff. Yeah, he said that Beyonce's video may have provoked the shootings. But guess who's on Beyonce's side? A Cornel West founded group called Stop Mass Incarceration Network. They say that celebrities like Beyonce have a right to speak out against police brutality without being attacked. That's interesting, huh?
I'm not going to. Yeah, well, look, I'm not going to argue with the fact that Beyonce has a right to free speech. She can say whatever she wants to say. I just think that in the vein of when you're in the venue of the Super Bowl, which and she was brought in there to do the entertainment, you don't turn this into a political statement. The halftime show has had a lot of problems over the years with the NFL, and they've been trying to find ways of making sure they don't wind up with any more, incidences that cause them a lot of grief. And this, to me, I think, does cause them more grief. I mean, now you've upset the police unions. That's not something the NFL really wants to get into. Who provides security at a lot of the games? They do need a few off-duty police officers here and there to provide security, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so this is all from a CNN article, and they even pointed out there's another union in Texas that's also thinking of boycotting. So there's several places, several states, and several cities that are unhappy with this. And it's funny because they said a representative for Beyonce was not immediately available to comment. How fitting.
Yeah, I think I go back to the old thing where we had the Dixie Chicks and their things that they said about President Bush, and I would emulate what others said, is that just shut up and sing. All right, well, so we're at the end of the program here. We just have one more final thing. What funny moment of the day from yesterday to me was that with the Nevada caucuses, NBC News correspondent Kerry Sanders was reporting from a Reno gun range, and so this was a live report, and he starts his report, and the funny thing is that if you listen to this, and we'll play the clip, you can't hear much of what he's actually saying, and so we'll play the clip. All right, so as you can hear from that clip, you can hear maybe every third word from Sanders, to the point that Andrea Mitchell, said, well, Kerry, I'm afraid we could not hear most of that because the firepower was a little too great. So I'm not sure what Sanders was doing there unless he wanted to try to bring in the whole Second Amendment gun rights issue into this whole deal. And liberals, they don't like the Second Amendment. They don't like the right to keep and bear arms. They don't like they want more gun control. I'm sure that maybe part of the angle that Sanders was hoping to get out of this was something along those lines, was to tie Republicans back with kind of right-wing gun-owning nuts or something like that. But this looked like it came out as a miserable fail.
Yeah, media fails again. I mean, you look at it, the statistics are quite jarring. In places with strict gun control laws, violence has soared. Chicago struggling. I mean, a lot of the people that are critical of the Black Lives Matter movement say, why don't you try to fix Chicago's problems? A lot of the violence is actually affecting young black male teenagers. And a couple of the people that have been killed in Chicago shootings are unarmed civilians, like young teenage girls and people who are attending elementary school. I mean, it's terrible, and it's just too bad that the media feels they should politicize this gun rights issue when, in fact, that actually does help prevent violence.
Right, and in saying, and part of this too, is that for the most part, most of the members of the media have never picked up a gun and gone to a range and shot a gun, a firearm of any kind. And so, they're speaking, they're just picking up all the gun control lobby, garbage, and repeating that and making this into a big deal. They have no real experience with this, and they constantly, on the air as they do the reports, they mix up the terminology, they get lots of things wrong, and so, but since a lot of other people who are watching television news don't know the difference, it comes out looking like they know what they're doing. So it's really kind of silly.
Yeah, it really is, and the rhetoric is just really misleading. They always talk about expanding background checks, but they never define what that is. And so whenever these polls are done, it asks, are you in favor of expanding background checks? The majority say yes. Even though it's barely above 50%, say yes, we agree with that. But the thing is, they're not specific of what that entails.
Right, then that's another problem. So there's a lot of things going on with that, but we are now out of time for this week's segment, and thanks for listening, and join us again next week.